Really quick before this video starts, this was supposed to be uploaded on Monday, but as I finished the video and it was rendering, it got corrupted, so I had to redo the whole thing. Sorry about that, but at least you get it today. Anyway, enjoy the video. Creepypastas. A term that derives from another internet phrase known as copypastas. Essentially, they serve as today's urban legends. They're stories passed around the internet, which serve one purpose: to scare. Over the years, the creepypasta community has evolved from a niche subculture to the mainstream phenomenon that it is today. There are countless creepypastas written every day, and countless have been written over the past couple of years. That being said, many of those creepypastas have grown in popularity, subsequently making several creepypasta characters well known to the general public. Iconic figures like Jeff the Killer, Smile Dog, and heck, even the evil Sonic from Sonic.exe are all pretty well known. However, arguably, one of the most iconic creepypasta characters to have ever been created is undoubtedly the Slender Man. Slender Man is a pretty interesting character. Honestly, he basically is a rejected Lovecraftian monster in many ways. He is particularly interesting because of the fact that there's a lot we actually know about him. However, for as much as we know about him, there are an equal or more things that we don't know about him. We don't know his origins. We don't know how he chooses his victims. We don't know his motivations for murder, killing, or tormenting people. And the list of things we don't know about him just goes on and on. That being the case, let's jump over to what we actually do know about him. Given that we actually don't know his origins, we'll first discuss Slender Man's appearance and abilities. The Slender Man is an extremely tall figure, hence why some refer to him as the Tall Man. He is completely white, has no hair, and no face. Recently, as of 2009, people have reported that the Slender Man wears a business suit with an accompanying white-collared shirt and black or red tie. I say recently because there are some who claim that the Slender Man has existed for a very long time, and earlier reports of the creature claim that he was clothless, albeit with no genitalia. This has led some to believe that one of his many abilities is to change his appearance at will. Speaking about his abilities, Slender Man is shown to have quite a few that we know of. One of his most well-known abilities is the ability to grow 8 tentacles that protrude from his back. Moreover, he has complete control over every single one of them, effectively giving him 8 more arms to grab you with. Each tentacle can grow in size and can extend to a hallway's length, or so some reports say. A seemingly passive trait Slender Man has is technological distortion. In other words, if the Slender Man is near any kind of technology, like a camera for example, he is able to distort the image and seemingly bend it to his will. Another ability he uses often is teleportation. It's pretty straightforward. He can teleport anywhere at will. It's an ability that really complements one of his others, that being driving people insane. Although, not in your typical sense. The Slender Man has an ability that slowly drives someone into insanity by the mere sight of it. Once he drives someone over the edge of insanity, they have the potential of becoming fully succumb to the Slender Man's will. They will become what are known as Proxies. A proxy is basically a slave or follower of Slender Man, and they come in 4 variations. The first are the Hollowed. They are merely mindless puppets who terrorize and harass runners with no other purpose. Then there are Berserkers, slaves to Slender Man, who manage to hold on to some of their will, which grants them the traits of having superior problem solving and tactics. Then there are sleepers, who keep their original personalities intact, and are blissfully unaware of their status as proxies. Second to last are revenants. These proxies exhibit superhuman strength and agility. Interestingly enough, you can also become a proxy willingly. This actually brings us to the final class of proxies, the agents, who are essentially cultists of Slender Man, who do his bidding of their own will. While most of his proxies are driven into insanity before they are forced to become proxies, you can become one willingly, which has the added benefit of maintaining your free will. However, if someone becomes a proxy via traditional methods, then in reality, they're really nothing more than slaves, both mentally and physically. When forced into servitude, proxies tend to lose all aspects of their personality. They often adapt emotionless or even sadistic personalities. Proxies also seem to be infatuated with the Slender Man. They either figuratively, or sometimes literally, worship him. Now, as for the entity itself, Slender Man has no identifiable origin, at least lore-wise. As for where the legend started, that's actually pretty well known, by mostly everyone. The origin of the Slender Man dates back to June 8th, 2009. On that date, a Paranormal Pictures Photoshop contest was launched on the Something Awful forums. The contest had participants manipulate photographs through digital altercation, and user Victor Surge, his real name Eric Nunson, uploaded the very first 2 images of Slender Man to have ever existed. The descriptions of the pictures said, "We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them. But its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time." 1983, photographer unknown, presumed dead. The second photograph read, "One of the 2 recovered photographs from the Sterling City Library blaze, notable for being taken the day which 14 children vanished, and for what is referred to as the Slender Man. Deformities cited as film defects by officials. Fire at library occurred 1 week later. Actual photograph confiscated as evidence. 1986 photographer Mary Thomas, missing since June 13th, 1986. Slender Man may have also been inspired by other legends that came before him. For instance, there are other legends extremely similar to that of Slender Man, that do in fact predate the creation of the internet. The legend I am referring to is the Tall Man. Well, this video is about to take a turn. I have to thoroughly talk about another urban legend in an urban legends video. Talk about Inception. Legendception? I'm sorry, that was awful. Just roll the intro again. In old Romanian folklore, exists a tall, slender creature that hides in the forest, and stalks and preys upon small children. He was referred to as the Tall Man back in the day, but now goes by several different names. No one really knows what the creature really is, but his legend would be forever known by the masses after the disappearance of 2 girls, twin sisters, Stella and Serena. The 2 sisters were incredibly brave for their age, while other youngsters cowered at the sight of darkness, bugs, spiders, or tall people. The girls would stand tall, with their heads held high, unaffected by what horrors stood before them. They were also very kind, and well-mannered. They were obedient to their mother and father, and would always do as their parents said, without question. They were the best children any parent could ask for. Sadly, to the dismay of many in their small town, they would soon meet their end. One day, the two were out with their mother on an errand, collecting berries in the forest. When they started their adventure into the forest, the day was bright, not a cloud or storm in sight. But as they traversed deeper and deeper into the forest, the light began to dim. Their mother quickly told the two girls to stay close to her, and they listened. They kept making their way through the forest when they encountered it. The tall man. There before them, he stood in the clearing, dressed in all black. A dark, misty cloud surrounded the tall man, and from behind the mysterious man sprouted many arms, all boneless and slithering around like snakes. But their heads, they were as sharp as swords. Though he did not speak one word, the tall man's intentions were made clear. Their mother kept hearing an abnormal hum coming from the tall man. It sounded like an old nursery rhyme. She tried not to listen, but she couldn't uphold her free will for very long. She began to follow the hum, and headed to the clearing where the tall man stood, her daughters just behind her. She quickly turned around, and mustered a couple of words to her daughters. "Stella," she muttered, "take my knife, and draw a circle on the ground, big enough to lie in." Stella was confused at her mother's request, but did as she said without question. Her mother began to speak again. "Sorina, take the berries and spread them in a circle. Crush them underfoot until the juice stains the earth." Sorina was also confused by her mother's odd request, but she did as her mother said without question. Their mother then asked Stella to lie on the ground. Despite being worried that she might stain her blouse, Stella did as she was told. Then their mother added, "Sorina, honey, take the knife and cut your sister open." Sorina was shocked. She couldn't do such a thing. She wouldn't do such a thing. Her mother pleaded, "Please, sweetie, listen to me. If you don't do as your mother says, it will be worse. So much worse." For the first time in her life, Sorina disobeyed her mother. And for the first time, Sorina was afraid. She threw the knife away and ran home as fast as her little legs could take her. When she finally reached her home, she hid under her bed and waited for her father to come. When he arrived, she told him about everything she had to bear witness to. Her father wrapped his arms around the little girl, trying to comfort the distraught Sorina. He laid her to rest beside a fire, grabbed an axe, and ventured into the woods. After some time passed, Sorina grew tired and fell asleep. About an hour or so later, she awoke to the sound of a harsh knocking at her front door. She whimpered, Who's there?" "It's your father," said a voice. Sorina responded with, I don't believe you." "It's your sister," said the voice. "Go away!" Sorina shouted. Then she heard a knock at the door again. Sorina looked up at the door, and the voice whispered, "It's your mother, Sorina, and I told you it would be so much worse." The door flew open, and there, in the doorway, stood her mother. Sorina was in shock, as her eyes took notice of the horrific scene in front of her. In the doorway was her mother, holding her sister's severed head, clutched in one hand, and her father's in the other. Sorina wept.
Why?
Because, said her mother. There was a long silence as the two gazed at each other. A long arm then pierced through Serina's mother's neck, and with one tug, the arm had pulled the head clean off the shoulders of Serina's mother. Then all three heads began to speak in unison. Because, Serina. Because there is no reward for goodness. There is no respite for faith. There is nothing but cold steel, the gnashing of teeth, and scourging of fire for all of us. And now, it's come for you. Through the door walked the tall man. He held his arms out to welcome the little girl, and she soon held hers out as well. The fire by the fireplace soon gave out, and as the room filled with darkness, Serina stood up and embraced the tall man. The tall man returned the favor, and the two disappeared. Ever since that day, people knew to stay out of the woods, specifically at night, in fear of meeting the same end as Serina's family. As for Serina, her whereabouts are still unknown. As you can tell, the Slender Man shares quite a bit of similarities with the Tall Man. Both are extremely tall, have long arms, have some kind of mental manipulation, and both have a fondness for young children. Evidently, the story of the Tall Man may not have been the only thing to have inspired the Slender Man. The creation of Slender Man may have also been inspired by an ongoing series of amateur adventure games titled Chasseau Mythos, published by Ben Yahtzee Croshaw in 2003. In the games, one of the main villains is called Cabadath, and is sometimes referred to as Tall Man. Making his first in-game appearance in Tribley's notes, the character was portrayed in the third installment as a tall, thin man dressed in a long, black, high-collared coat with tails that reached the floor and having a blank face. So reads an excerpt on KnowYourMean.com when regarding the Slender Man. That being said, it's pretty obvious that the Slender Man's design is too similar to that of Cabadath, and his story is too similar to that of the Tall Man, for those two not to be some kind of inspiration for Victor Surge. Although, as of the making of this video, he has yet to comment on that assertion. There's no denying that the Slender Man is immensely popular, and banking off the topic of inspiration, the Slender Man has also inspired many things in pop culture. Firstly, there have been tons of fan videos created about the Slender Man, as well as many alternate reality games and web series, one of the most famous being Marble Hornets. And of course there's other series like Everyman Hybrid, The Anderson Journals, Dark Harvest, and Caught Not Sleeping, all web series that have formed to create a movie cinematic-esque universe, known as the Slenderverse. It's one web series that I actually highly recommend watching, if you're not doing anything for the next month or so. For as much as I love the series, or the Slenderverse in general, it's extremely long, so watch it if you have the time. The Slender Man has also inspired many video games, notably Slender the 8 Pages and Slender the Arrival. There are also tons of derivative characters that are obvious nods to the Slender Man, like Minecraft's Enderman, or Doctor Who's The Silence. The Slender Man has also managed to acquire several creepypastas written about him, not to mention countless books, and of course, movies, with one actually coming out this year. And you bet I'll be first in line to see that movie. Realistically, if you asked me if the legend of the Slender Man was real, my response would be no. Absolutely not. That much is blatantly obvious, especially considering we know his actual origins. However, as for the Tall Man, maybe he's real. There aren't many accounts completely discrediting the legend of the Tall Man. I mean, for all we know, Slender Man and the Tall Man may be the same entity, and we just gave the tall man a different name for this generation. Regardless, that's going to bring this video to a close. That being said, let me leave you with this little factoid. Did you know the Slender Man's popularity peaked in January 1st, 2013?